The clan chief is a very well-known fly, originally designed by John Kennedy of South Uist. Originally intended as a sea trout and salmon pattern, it works equally well for brown trout. Mount your hook in the vise, test the hold and the hook, and catch on your thread. Trim off the waist. You want to catch your thread on a little further back from the eye than normal to leave space for the muddler head. As there is a double tail on this fly, you can catch in the first part of the floss tail as we form the underbody. As you'll be catching in the second part of the tail and the rib, you don't need to make sure we are touching turns at this point. Take your thread back up to try and make sure we start the floss in almost the same place. You don't want to go beyond where we started the thread off, and make sure the tail starts at the same point for both bunches of floss. Next step, catch in your rib. And now we take a bit more time to make sure we have a good covering of thread so the colours do not show through the body. This is a good time to make sure we have a nice neat underbody and everything is tidied up and even. Once you're happy that the underbody is smooth, we can start dubbing the body. Black seal's fur. The double palmer hackle and muddler head on this fly will give it a lot of presence in the water. There is no need to dub too heavy a body. When forming dubbed bodies, I find it's always easier to control the shape and profile if you dub small quantities of fur at a time. Once you have the body formed, the next step is to tie in the hackles. You can tie these in individually, but I find it's often easier to tie them in together, as they will stay together as you palmer them. Once you catch the stalks in, double them back and tie them down, then you can break away the waste pieces. The order in which the hackles are tied in will have an influence on the final look of the fly. The hackle that is forwardmost will stand out more. This is why on this fly the red hackle will be more dominant. You can palmer both hackles at the same time, try and keep the spacings even. The number of turns can be varied to suit the style of fly you want. I will usually use between 4 and 5 turns. Once you've wound your hackles, catch in with the silver wire rib and rib up the fly again in nice even turns. If you're confident with the way you rib the fly, you shouldn't need to worry too much about trapping hackle fibres, just take a little care. Catch in your rib at the head of the fly. I now break away the hackle tips before breaking away the rib. This means that if something goes wrong with the hackles, you do have an opportunity to backtrack and save the fly. Helicoptering off the rib gives a nice clean finish. The next step is to tie on the muddler head. You can vary the amount of deer hair you select to suit the fly you want. It's worth having a play and seeing what suits your fishing. After selecting your bunch of deer hair, you need to remove all the underfur with a comb or something like that. Stack the tips so they're all aligned. Place your bunch of hair on top of the fly with 2 loose wraps. Tighten and continue to wrap around to spin the deer hair. If you don't get the effect you want, don't be afraid to unwind, remove the deer hair and prepare another bunch and try again. It's one of these techniques where practice really does make perfect. Your thread should now be close to or at the eye of the hook. Pull all the deer hair back if you can to try and clear the hook eye as much as possible and whip finish, trying not to trap any deer hair fibres. Don't worry if you catch a few, these will be caught as we trim the head. I like to use a pair of curved scissors for trimming my muddler heads, and using lots of small cuts allows me to control the shape. Take your time and try not to cut any of the hackle tips, forming the collar. Be wary of the temptation to keep trimming too much and keep going to try and gain the perfect shape. As you trim backwards, and I've almost finished the head of the fly, you will find that some of the hair stubs are intermingled with the tips of the hair. You want to try and pull these forward so you can trim them. A few final tidying up cuts, and the last step is to make sure we've got the eye of the hook clear and any trap deer hair is cleared away. Once you're happy with the muddler head, the next step is to trim the tail to length, roughly about the length of the fly. Now check the profile of the fly, make sure everything's sitting where you want. A little rub with Velcro to pull out the hackle fibres. The last step is to apply a little varnish to the head of the fly. And that's it, finished. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Any comments and feedback would be greatly appreciated.